This is Access Door County. I'm your host today, Pete Devlin. And today's topic is the cutting of trees at Whitefish Dunes State Park. The cutting was done over this past couple of months, and we've got with us today the park manager, Fred Viste, just talking about the reason those trees were cut down. And I think it can come down to one word. Welcome, Fred, by the way.
Well, thank you.
And I think it would come down to one word, why the trees were cut: safety. Is that right?
Safety. Safety is the big message here for the cutting at Whitefish Dunes.
What aspect of safety? I mean, what were you concerned about?
We're primarily concerned about our park users, the park visitors that hike and bike throughout the trails, roads, and or the park's roads and trails that go throughout the property. So safety is the big message as far as why we had to do this, because we do have a number of park visitors that use our park.
Now, the focus in the park itself was strictly on the beech tree, am I right?
Correct. The purpose of the cutting was for for why we did their cutting was for the removal of the beech tree and other hazard trees along the trails and roadways.
And the reason that you targeted the beech trees is they were dying, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
The beech trees were infected with, or a number of them are infected with beech scale,
Which I am led to believe is comparable to Dutch elm disease, in that it is pretty much 100% fatal when it infests a tree.
there's a 95% mortality rate in beech trees, historically speaking.
And again, my understanding is that once the tree is infested and dies, it becomes quite brittle. Is that it?
The trees actually don't even need to die to become brittle. They're actually more dangerous when they have leaves on them, because the leaves act as sails essentially and catch the wind, and that can cause the trees to actually topple over on seemingly healthy trees.
I wasn't aware of that. The trees, though, were in danger of falling on the trails and on the roads. And it seems to me, I'm just recalling what we've talked about before, and I've talked with other people about. Trees, the beech tree at maturity is about 75 feet tall, right?
Correct.
All right. So that's the reason that the beech trees that were within 75 feet of roads or trails are the ones you or not you personally, but that the DNR, Department of Natural Resources, had to cut down.
Correct. The 75 feet is the height of maturity for trees at our park. It is entirely possible that trees in other areas might have been smaller or larger, perhaps, but at Whitefish Dunes, some of the mature trees were actually 75 feet tall, and those are big trees.
And with those gone, you didn't attempt to clear cut beech trees from the park. It was only within the trails and roads, right?
Correct. It was within 75 feet on either side of our trails and roads, which were predominantly beech, and they were only trees that were 5 inches in diameter at about 4.5 feet above the ground and larger that were removed.
All right. What happened to the wood?
The wood was harvested by Algoma Lumber Company, and they're going to use it for various saw products.
And I understand there is also some pulpwood.
Correct, which would be a part of.
That's part of the saw product? When I think of harvesting the logs, I was thinking of lumber, dimensional lumber, that sort of thing. How did this come about, the actual harvest? What was its origin? It didn't originate with you at the park, did it? The foresters were involved, and there are other people within the DNR who had to make that decision, right?
Correct. There was a variance, was what it's called, which was written before my time, where the other managers were involved as far as kind of getting some public input from it and then writing this proposal to basically get permission or get the cut taken care of within the park system. But safety was the overlying message always with this.
If we can talk about you for a minute, then you say it was before your time. You have been associated with the Whitefish Dunes Park for a while, haven't you?
January 28th, I believe, was my first day at Whitefish Dunes as a park manager.
But you worked there before, didn't you?
I did in 2006 and 2007 as a seasonal employee at Whitefish Dunes.
How do you like it?
I love it, actually. I mean, it has its challenges, and it's a great property to work at, and it's a beautiful property.
Did you work at other parks before then?
I did.
Just tell us a little bit about yourself. I appreciate if you got a moment for that.
Oh, sure. I started with the DNR actually in the very end of 2000 and into 2001. I worked up at Rock Island State Park as the campground host, and I was a seasonal laborer up there actually. So I did that through the summer of 2001. And then I worked for the Green Bay Forestry Department for 2 summers after that. And then I got my police credentials, or my law enforcement credentials, from Mid-State Technical College. So I worked at Potawatomi State Park in the summer of 2008, or correction, 2005. And worked in Whitefish Dunes in 2006 and 2007 as a seasonal ranger. And I got on full-time at Peninsula State Park in 2008, and I worked there for about 1 year and 9 months. And then I got the opportunity to transfer over to Hartman Creek State Park, which is in Wapaka County, and I worked there for 4 years.
You said you have law enforcement credentials, and I see you are wearing a badge. Do you have full arrest powers then?
Correct.
Okay. And I see that you're also armed as you go about your job. That's typical for a warden or a ranger in this day and age, isn't it?
Correct, yes. Rangers are credentialed officers, as well as park managers and park superintendents.
Back to the trees. When was the clearing of the beech trees done at your park?
It was conducted in early April, and I think they finished up right around the 3rd week in April, maybe a little bit further on. They were kind of doing some cleanup.
So it was only about a 3-week project. And when they removed the trees, they left a lot of the limbs on the ground. Is that right?
Correct. They only were able to utilize so much of the tree, and then the branches and some of the top wood was left behind.
And that top wood is for perhaps harvesting if a firewood permit can be issued. Is that right?
Correct. Some of that top wood, the stuff that the product that was maybe not utilized, or they wouldn't be able to utilize for various forest products, they had to leave behind due to some sort of defect or something. But we do plan on doing a firewood permitting, issuing firewood permits to people that are interested, in which they would just contact me at the park office with a phone number, their name, and I usually put down the date that they contacted me so I can go through our list, and basically it's a first come, first serve.
As my understanding, it's probably going to take several months for that permitting process to be in place. Is that right?
We need to work with the county because, as I'm sure you know, on WD, which runs right through the park, and that's where we'll be conducting the permitting process, where people can come in and do it there. They're going to need to, we need to work with the county because there's no parking there.
Yeah.
So we need to find out what we have to do to allow people to park there, because it can be dangerous with a lot of vehicles coming through there and traffic.
So the reason I'm asking that it would take some time is that this program, when it's first presented, will be several months before before the actual permits can likely be issued. Am I doing this, am I understanding it correctly?
Well, I'm, to be honest with you, I don't really know as to how long it's gonna take for us to start issuing these permits, but it's gonna be me working with the DNR forester, Chris Polzak, or even Bill Ruff, to try and get this permitting process kind of taken care of and kind of move it along.
Yeah, I'm just trying to relieve you from getting phone calls immediately. That the folks who are watching understand that this could take several months before the permits would be issued, right?
That's correct.
Okay. The areas where the trees were cleared apparently have a new opportunity for growth, don't they?
They do. The trees, the canopy opening up is actually going to allow more sunlight to hit the forest floor, which could potentially allow species like the sugar maple, which has been sitting in the understory, to become released and grow faster.
And other species that you anticipate?
There are other various species, but I think the sugar maple probably utilizes a little more. There is that 5% beech that will probably grow into larger trees, and even the trees that were cut, there's potential that those might have been ones that were immune to this disease, but they will still sprout from the stumps. So there's still the chance that the trees that were cut will be able to grow into larger trees again.
And back to the beech tree harvest itself, it was not the intent of this harvest in April to clear all of the beech out of Whitefish Dunes Park, was it?
Correct.
So what would you guess as a percentage of the beech trees that were in the park remain there? I know I'm putting you on the spot on this one.
A percentage of the beech that
the total
remain?
beech population that is still there.
That I don't really have a good answer to. What I can tell you is that the cut only affects 7% of our total acreage of the property. And so of 95% of the beech that potentially could die from this, I guess between doing some various surveys in the future, it'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, see, we reporters do love to go to numbers. We like statistics, you understand. What do you see as the future for Whitefish Dunes? Just from, you're sitting there as essentially a brand-new park manager.
Correct.
And you've just experienced your first free weekend. And apparently, you were quite happy with the results of that, weren't you?
I was. We did get a number of folks that came in and enjoyed the weekend, having been free weekend for open house weekend, I guess I should say, within the Wisconsin State Park system. And we did see a lot of people coming in and enjoying the park. So I mean that is good to see and good to hear. And some folks were asking about the cut as to what happened, and a lot of people from outside the area seemed to understand and appreciate why we were doing this cut, and that's safety.
Did you get much negative feedback
As far as
the cutting?
From outside of the county, not so much.
But locally, there were some people who were concerned.
People are concerned, and I mean, a lot of people have a lot of emotional ties to the property, the trees, and they care about it. And I care about it too. I mean, I fell in love with the property when I was a seasonal employee back in 2006 and 2007, and that's why I wanted to come back.
So we discussed your age as being in your early 30s. So you probably have a good 30 years of working life left in the DNR. Is this where you want to stay?
I've been looking forward to working at Whitefish Dunes for a long time.
Yeah, you're originally from Door County too, right?
Incorrect. My dad's side of the family is from Door County, being a Viste, though most of us are related. So my family comes from Green Bay originally, but my dad's from up here.
Okay. I've actually run out of questions. Anything that you want to add to our discussion here today?
Not really. If you have any other questions, or if anyone wants to contact me at the park, call the main office line, which is 823-2400, or they can even send me an email, and I'd be pleased to provide people with that. I don't shy away from feedback, and I want to talk to people and educate people on this.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. We've been talking with Fred Viste, who is the manager of Whitefish Dunes State Park. We've just been joined by Dick Weidman, who is a member of the Sevastopol Town Board and has a background in agriculture.
Horticulture?
Horticulture.
Right.
I'm sorry, the word was close.
That's close enough.
Why don't we establish what your background is?
I have a BS degree and a master's degree in horticulture from UW-Madison, and I was also superintendent of the UW Research Station on Highway 42 for about 32 years.
You're retired now, but you lend your expertise in things related to harvesting trees, right?
On occasion, right. And I have a long-term relationship with Whitefish Dunes State Park. I've been a volunteer there for 25 years, served on the Friends of the Whitefish Dunes board for almost that long as well. So I have active interest, and growing up in the area, really appreciate that park and what it adds to our community.
What's your take on the beech tree harvest in the park itself?
In the park itself, in the years that I've been studying and familiar with different scale insects, I would have to say that this particular scale species on beech trees is probably one of the most, I'd say, precocious or rapid developing that I've seen of any before. I mean, we've seen scale insects on apple trees and other fruit trees, but none of them that move as fast as this particular species does. Probably within a matter of 2 years, the population basically explodes. And what they do is they suck the living life out of a tree. They're feeding underneath the bark on the cambium layer, which provides water for the tree and provides food for the root system. So they're basically starving the tree, and if the population gets high enough, the tree, within a very short period of time, starts to die.
And at that point, there's nothing that can be done to save it, right?
Not with that kind of a population that develops that quickly. There's also a fungus, a canker, that follows behind as a secondary organism, follows the scale and takes advantage of a weakened tree and basically increases the odds that the tree is going to die. And it's a twofold, very similar to Dutch elm disease that we saw many years ago, except that this particular complex seems to move a lot quicker than Dutch elm disease did.
Question for both of you gentlemen. With leaving the the wood, the branches on the ground in the forest, does that allow the disease to grow or to strengthen itself before spreading?
I don't think so. The particular fungus is a Neonectria canker, which does need a living host to survive on. There's other fungi in the woods, in the wooded area, that account for the breakdown of woody branches and that sort of thing, but they don't typically attack a living tree. So, that group of fungi, bacteria, is always in the woods. So that probably doesn't have a bearing on it.
Beech typically will decompose fairly quickly once it's down on the ground as well. Mm-hmm. So chances are the coarse woody debris that is on the ground, the larger stuff, is going to allow more habitat for critters, be it other insects, mammals, small mammals, the like of that. and the stuff that does start decomposing will return back to the soil layer and will produce more soil.
What kind of critters?
Various small mammals, be it mice, voles, chipmunks, you name it,
Ground
small
squirrels.
furry critters.
Right.
Yep.
So you see that going forward, the forest will be healthy.
Right. I think a big thing too is the moisture levels that we have in the soil right now. We're coming off, this last fall and this year, fairly adequate moisture levels, but 2 or 3 years previous to that, we had some serious drought problems which really affected tree growth in the woods. And I think once you start to see some of these new beech seedlings coming up and growing and flourishing, within a short period of time, they'll fill in and be there. Whether or not the scale insect will remain in the kind of population levels that exist right now, it's hard to say. But the beech trees the saplings are there and they're ready to start growing.
I had asked Fred before you sat in about the future, what type of trees we can expect. He suggested sugar maple in a large quantity. Am I right?
Sure, sugar maple.
Yeah, of that plant community, sugar maple, beech are two primary species that would come in once the canopy is opened up. And there are some sugar maple that will seed that area too. But there's an awful lot of beech in that area. And once the ground is disturbed as well, the seeds that have been dormant in the soil will more than likely germinate and the population will increase.
Something that just struck me, and I probably am completely wrong on this, but I'll ask anyway. Aren't beech trees as tappable as maple trees for syrup purposes? I thought I'd read that somewhere that they were.
I'm
I'm
not
not
sure on
familiar.
beech. Birch, yellow birch is one that is used sometimes for a syrup. Beech, possibly. Depends on your taste.
All right. I think we ought to probably stop right there with, because I know that Fred is under obligation to get going. So let me just wrap things up for now. You've been watching Access Door County with your host, Pete Devlin, that's me. And we've been talking with both Fred Viste, the manager of the Whitefish Dunes State Park, and with Dick Weidman, who is a member of the Sevastopol Town Board and was the manager of the Peninsula Agricultural Station on Highway 42 for more than the last 30 years. Access Door County is produced by Sevastopol TV, Channel 986. Thank you for watching.